Something about this season just feels different, doesn't it? On the surface, everything looks exciting, but if you pay close attention, there's one issue that could completely change the future of this team. A lot of fans are talking about the quarterback situation, others are focused on the offense. But there's a much bigger picture that not everyone is seeing yet. And honestly, if things don't go the way everyone hopes, the consequences could be much bigger than just one disappointing season. So stick around, because once you connect all the pieces, you'll understand why this might be one of the most important years this franchise has had in a long time. Everything starts with Justin Jefferson. When people discuss the Vikings, they naturally focus on the quarterback situation, but one national voice recently shifted the conversation in a completely different direction. Mike Florio argued that the biggest priority for Minnesota is making sure they get this season right because of Justin Jefferson. The message is actually very simple. Jefferson is entering his 7th NFL season, and at this stage of his career, winning has become more important than anything else. That is what makes this situation so fascinating. Justin Jefferson is not like most superstar wide receivers around the league. Many elite receivers measure success by catches, receiving yards, touchdowns, Pro Bowl appearances, or All-Pro selections. Jefferson has already accomplished nearly everything an individual player could ask for. He has led the league in receiving, consistently produced historic numbers at a young age, and established himself among the very best players in football. But according to the discussion, none of that is enough anymore. The one thing still missing from his resume is the one thing every great player ultimately wants: playoff success. Incredibly, a player with Jefferson's talent still does not have a playoff victory in his NFL career. And that reality has started to become impossible to ignore. That is exactly why this season feels so important. It is a massive year for Kevin O'Connell as he continues trying to prove this coaching staff can take the next step. It is a huge year for whoever ultimately leads the offense at quarterback. And maybe bigger than all of that, it is a defining year for Justin Jefferson himself. The discussion also makes another interesting point that many fans may actually agree with. Normally, building an entire offense around one player can become dangerous. In many sports, forcing the ball to a superstar often hurts the overall team because everyone else becomes less involved. But Justin Jefferson is presented as the rare exception to that rule. When Jefferson gets involved early and consistently, the entire Vikings offense becomes more dangerous. Defenses are forced to dedicate extra attention to him, creating opportunities everywhere else on the field. The passing game opens up. Running lanes become easier to find. Matchups become more favorable for the other receivers. In other words, Jefferson producing is not simply about individual statistics. It is directly connected to winning football games. That makes what happened last season even more surprising. Despite his incredible ability, Jefferson's production reflected just how difficult the offensive situation became. He finished the season with 84 receptions, just over 1,000 receiving yards, only 2 touchdowns across 17 games, averaged roughly 12.5 yards per catch, and his longest reception was only 50 yards. Those are respectable numbers for most receivers, but for someone universally considered among the NFL's elite, they represent a noticeable step below his usual standard. The discussion places much of that on inconsistent quarterback play, while also suggesting the offensive system never fully allowed Jefferson to maximize his impact. Then comes the question that every Vikings fan hopes never becomes reality. What happens if this season looks almost identical? What if the offense struggles again? What if Jefferson once again finishes with numbers that feel well below his talent level? What if Minnesota finds itself hovering around another 9-win season without taking a meaningful step forward? The discussion makes it clear that nobody expects Justin Jefferson to publicly demand a trade. In fact, it specifically suggests that such a move would not match the way he has handled himself throughout his career. He has consistently been viewed as a leader, a positive presence inside the locker room, and one of the true faces of the franchise. But even with all of that, the possibility begins to enter the conversation if the organization fails to convince its biggest superstar that it has finally found the right direction. What do you think, Vikings fans? Is this season truly the most important of Justin Jefferson's career so far? Or do you believe the Vikings have already built enough around him to keep him fully committed for years to come? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments because I really want to hear where this fan base stands on this discussion. But that is only one side of what makes this season so important. The other side is the quarterback position, because, according to the discussion, the Vikings could finally have something they have been missing for years. Former Vikings legend Chris Carter recently talked about what a mobile quarterback could potentially bring to this offense, and it is a point that deserves serious attention. For a long time, Minnesota has relied primarily on traditional pocket passers. While several quarterbacks have had success in different stretches, the offense has rarely been built around someone capable of consistently creating plays outside the pocket. That element has simply been missing from the playbook. The transcript argues that adding true mobility changes everything. A quarterback who can threaten defenses with his legs doesn't just create highlight plays. He changes the math on every snap. Defenses suddenly have to account for one more runner. Designed quarterback runs become an option. Read option concepts force defenders to hesitate. Even the running game benefits because linebackers can no longer attack downhill without respecting the quarterback keeping the football. That also creates an interesting challenge for Kevin O'Connell. The discussion suggests that simply running the same offense with a more athletic quarterback won't be enough. The Vikings coaching staff would need to evolve the scheme itself. The traditional drop-back passing concepts that have defined the offense in recent years should only be one layer of the attack. The expectation is that Minnesota can become much more multiple, forcing defenses to prepare for an entirely different style every single week. If that happens, the offense could become significantly harder to defend than it has been in recent seasons. As exciting as that sounds, another player is quietly beginning to generate plenty of attention inside the organization. Jacoby Thomas may not be receiving the same headlines as the offensive stars, but his development could become one of the biggest surprises of training camp. During a detailed film breakdown, Pete Bertzich highlighted several traits that immediately stand out. One of the biggest strengths is Thomas's ability to disguise his intentions before the snap. He can line up near the line of scrimmage showing pressure before quickly dropping into coverage, or attack the quarterback as a blitzer without giving the offense any warning. That kind of versatility fits perfectly into Brian Flores's aggressive defensive philosophy. His instincts were another major point of emphasis. The film study showed multiple examples of Thomas recognizing developing routes, breaking on the football quickly, and using his closing speed to eliminate passing windows before quarterbacks could take advantage. Those instincts, combined with his athleticism, allow him to impact the game in several different ways, instead of being limited to one specific role. Then there is his ability as a blitzer. According to the breakdown, running backs consistently struggled to slow him down in pass protection. Even when Thomas didn't personally record a sack, his pressure often forced quarterbacks into mistakes or created opportunities for teammates to finish the play. His combination of speed, timing, physicality, and football intelligence has many believing he could compete for meaningful playing time immediately, with the discussion even suggesting he has a legitimate chance to become a Week 1 starter. When you step back and connect every storyline, it becomes obvious why this season feels so different. Justin Jefferson wants to prove this franchise is ready to compete at the highest level. Kevin O'Connell has an opportunity to show his offense can evolve. The quarterback situation has the potential to completely reshape the identity of the team, and young defensive players like Jacoby Thomas could provide another layer to a defense that already expects to play aggressively. There is pressure, but there is also enormous opportunity. If everything comes together, this could become the season that changes the direction of the Minnesota Vikings for years to come. Now I want to hear from you, Vikings fans. Which storyline are you watching most closely this season? Is it Justin Jefferson's future, the evolution of the offense, or Jacoby Thomas's potential breakout on defense? Share your thoughts down in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest Minnesota Vikings news. SKOL.